Hello, my name is Ciaran McCormack and I am the branch manager for the Australia and Pacific branch of the Climate Reality Project. Mr. Gore held his first training outside of the US in Sydney, right back at the start of the Climate Reality Project's existence. And the first branch of the Climate Reality Project outside of the US was in Australia also. This is in acknowledgement by Mr. Gore of the fact that the Australian Pacific region is one of the most vulnerable regions in the world to climate change, and so it's where some of the first and worst impacted communities are, but it's also where many of the solutions to the climate crisis are coming from. So in the Australian Pacific region we have 2,400 leaders trained from a very wide cross-section of society. So from company CEOs to Hollywood actors, from politicians to pediatricians, from farmers to faith and First Nations leaders. And of course the Climate Reality training is the centerpiece of our work, but we also have some programs beyond the trainings. So for instance, we've got a big business engagement program looking to equip the leaders who are working in the corporate sphere to be ambitious within their organizations, at their board level, at their C-suite executive level, at their whole of workforce level and across their sectors. We've got a big focus on social justice and climate justice, of course, because the diversity of cultures in the region is huge, and climate justice is one of the big issues in the Australian Pacific region for Indigenous Australians, for Pacific Islanders, for youth, for so many of the communities in the region. So the Australian Pacific branch of the Climate Reality Project has been running a COP27 campaign. We've called it the hashtag Climate Reality to Egypt campaign. In this campaign, we've been talking and highlighting some of the things that we believe are needed from governments in the region, and package those up in a format, a toolkit, through which we've been providing through to the climate reality leaders and our various publics. So within the toolkit, we are looking at things like what are the 2030 targets that are needed by governments in the region. In Australia, we've got a new national government. They've just brought in a new NDC, a new nationally determined contribution. They've increased that for 2030. We had a very paltry 26 to 28% reduction previously. That was woefully inadequate. They've just upped that to 43%. It's an improvement. It's a long way short of the 74% that climate scientists say is necessary. Our new Prime Minister is calling it the 43% a floor, not a target on ambition. So this is one of the areas that Australia really needs to up its game. We're looking at things like climate finance. Australia was heavily involved in the inception of the Green Climate Fund, for example, and withdrew in 2019. It needs to rejoin with new monies and new ambition. Loss and damages. Australia needs to make a strong declaration about the need for a loss and damage facility with new and additional funding to support frontline communities, which we've got so many of in our region, who are already experiencing the impacts of climate change. We have been talking about some of the side agreements where the region can be making an impact. Things like the Global Methane Pledge, beyond oil and gas, phasing out of coal, gas and oil. Australia is the third largest exporter of fossil fuels in the world. This is a really important area for us. Talking about things like climate justice. What is climate justice? So we've presented all of that in our toolkit. I'm also here supporting some of our climate reality leaders from the region. We've got about 12 who are here with us over the fortnight, supporting them financially to come and travel and be here and attend COP27. It's really expensive. for people from some of these really remote places to travel here. So we've been providing a little bit of financial support, but we are also providing promotional support and allyship to their events and initiatives. So for instance, we've got one of our climate reality leaders who is from Aotearoa, New Zealand, who is coordinating the Indigenous Peoples Pavilion. We've got someone else who's advocating for a disability caucus to be part of the COP processes and looking around at some of the accessibility issues that many people are having with this particular COP. It's clear that just that small example, accessibility is an issue. We've got people working on health in the business world, tourism, etc. And so my role is to show that active allyship, promote their events, form connections with partners and so on. I'm also here speaking at some events, so I spoke at an event at the Oceans Pavilion the other day. I'm attending partner events. I'm also here because of the to meet my counterparts, my colleagues from around the world. I started in my role right at the start of 2020, at the start of the global pandemic. I live and work in Melbourne. Our branch is based there on Wurundjeri country, which is the lands of the traditional owners called the Wurundjeri people in Melbourne. Melbourne was the most locked down city in the world. We had the most days of lockdown. I didn't get to meet my team for 9 months in the branch, and so it's been a real delight to come here and meet in person all of these people that I've known for 2 years, all of the other branch managers, all the other branch staff from around the world, all of the staff from headquarters, our CEO Phyllis, and of course Mr. Gore. Who wouldn't want to meet Mr. Gore? Now, the Australian Pacific region obviously has some of the first and worst impacted communities on the planet, and we're seeing a lot of extreme weather events. Right now, while I'm here at COP27 in Egypt, there's a major flooding event going on the eastern seaboard of Australia. We had the wildfires 2 years ago, which were so rampant, droughts, sea level rise, all of these major impacts. However, I retain a large element of hope that we can do a lot more and faster to address these impacts. So, for instance, we are privileged to live and work on the lands of some of the oldest cultures on the planet. More than 60,000 years Aboriginal Australians have been living in what we now call Australia. They have gone through extreme weather events in the past. They are a resilient people. They can teach us so much if we have the humility and the empathy to listen better and be better partners with them. What also gives me hope is the sheer diversity of communities and voices who want to be heard on this issue across our region. So I'm talking about, as I said, Indigenous Australians, Pacific Islanders, Indigenous people in Aotearoa, New Zealand. All of these people have resilience deeply embedded in their DNA, and again, we need to be listening really respectfully for the Australian Pacific part of the world, but globally they have so much to teach us. The voices of young people, these are the voices that we need to be listening more to. We need to be giving them a seat at the negotiating table. The Pacific Island heads of state are excellent at doing this. They do this constantly. They provide that platform and they want their youth to be heard. The Climate Reality Project is working with youth, and we want to provide a platform to elevate and amplify their voices, as we do for all of our diverse voices. There's so much happening in terms of the shifting of the politics, the shifting of policy, the shifting of capital in our region and globally, of course. We've just gone through a federal election in Australia where the pendulum has swung very significantly, and we're seeing already some of the efforts that are happening to address the climate crisis. Because of course it's a climate crisis, but it's a climate opportunity, and the current administration sees it in that way. They haven't reached the levels of ambition that we would want them to see, but they're seeming to have the will to go where we haven't been able to go for quite a long time. They're also warming relations necessarily with our Pacific Island neighbours, and the Pacific Island neighbours are being really magnanimous in the fact that they've been talking about these issues for so long, but they're willing to be good partners with Australia, with New Zealand, the more developed parts, neighbours of the Pacific Ocean, and globally, of course. We're seeing the leadership come through from the Pacific leaders. The Vanuatu International Court of Justice advisory opinion is one example. The Pacific Islands Forum leadership recently declared a climate emergency. So many initiatives like this. So these are the things that give me hope. I think back to 2019, pre-pandemic, I took part in the climate strikes for action. I've taken part in a lot of actions like this, and this was one of the most powerful emotional experiences of that time and of my life, to be very honest. We had hundreds of thousands of mainly youth, but we had people coming out of their offices. We had people from all walks of life joining those young people on the streets, showing this is how important the issue is to the next generation, and it's on us as the current generation to provide the platform for those voices coming through. So all of these things are what give me hope. We're here at COP27 in Egypt. There's going to be a decision made at the end of this fortnight about a bid that Australia and the Pacific Islands are putting forward to host COP31 in 2026. If that happens, if that gets the green light, that's another reason for us to be really hopeful from my part of the world, for the Australian and Pacific part of the world. We're starting to see the Pacific leadership be acknowledged and recognised. The Australian government and the New Zealand government are starting to show signs of leadership. If we do manage to host COP31, this will be the litmus test for whether they've got, whether they can walk that talk and really bring that leadership to the next level. This is the critical decade. We need to see those solutions. We've got them at hand. We don't need any new solutions. We don't need to wait around anymore. We just need to get working on them really quickly and start putting them in place. We are the solution.